Hi everybody, welcome to our 5-day challenge. Today I'm just going to talk a little bit about 4 principles that are going to help us consistently reach our goals and a little introduction about how I got started on this and why I'm doing it. I guess I'll just start from when I started realizing I needed something different than what I was doing. And so it started really when I started realizing how much I was lacking in my education was after my baby was born, my first daughter. This was like 22 years ago. We had just moved to Kentucky, and she was born 2 months after we moved there. And so in order to ward off the loneliness, my husband was working and going to school, so I was home alone with my baby a lot. And so at night, I would often just turn on the TV, and we would start watching just TV shows. I'd sit with her or rock her or just do different things. And one day, she was also kind of colicky, so I didn't get a lot of sleep at night. And one thing that would calm her down is to sit outside on the porch in her car seat, and I would rock her while she would watch the leaves sway above us. There was this big tree in our front area. So one day I was sitting out there with her, and we were both looking up at the leaves, and I just got to thinking. And I was thinking about the show we had watched before, the night before. Well, I had watched it. She had been with me. And it was a show that portrayed some things that were not like with my values. They had like premarital sex, there was gossip, there was just put downs and sarcastic humor. And I found it really funny. It kind of warded off my, I just, gave me a chance to laugh and stuff in the evenings. But I started thinking about what it would do to her, because to me, that lifestyle seemed pretty normal. And I noticed that I was starting to feel like my lifestyle wasn't normal. And I thought, I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking that this kind of lifestyle is good and happy and funny, and that the life that we're living isn't, because she's exposed to this. Like, I started to understand the culture I was creating in my home was going to be what she grew up thinking was normal, and I was putting these things in my home. And so I thought, I got to stop watching that, and I've got to figure out how to make a culture that's a little more wholesome for her. But I really wasn't sure how to do that, and I started thinking about, well, what kind of education do I want for her? And it hit me that I had a terrible education. Like, I had gone through high school, right? And I'd taken 3 years of college at this point, but I knew so little. Like, I didn't know, I didn't remember much history. I hadn't read many classics. And I just kind of started to come to this realization that I needed an education. And here I was with this baby, and I didn't really have one. And so the next day I decided I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to start reading the classics. I got to start figuring this out, because she's going to have questions. She's going to have different things that she's exposed to. And I want to have good answers for her, something that's based on history and that other people have experienced as well. And I want to know how to guide her through this, crazy world that we're in. And so I put her in my stroller and we went to the library. And as we're going down, looking at all the shelves of books, I was like, okay, well, something's probably going to stick out at me. I didn't know what to start with. I thought, classics, I'm sure I'll find something that kind of sounds familiar. So I'm going through reading all the spines of the books, and I came to Charles Dickens. And I thought, hey, that's familiar. I know I've heard his name before. I'll read one of his books. That'd be a great place to start. So I picked one up, and I went home and I began to try to read. And at first it was really difficult. I didn't understand it very well. The language was different than what I was used to. But I really wanted to. I thought, if other people can read this, I can too. I'm going to push through this. And so ways into the book, I started kind of grasping his language and understanding the ideas he was sharing and understanding his thoughts. And by the time I closed the book, I just remember feeling like enlightened in a way that I had never really felt before. Like, these new thoughts and ideas that were so deep and so interesting were flowing into my mind. And I liked the feeling. It was like this light had been lit in and everything felt kind of cobwebby and dusty in my head. But I was also kind of mad because I had been through this system of schooling for 15 years now, and I had never experienced this depth of thought. And I thought, how did this happen? Like, how did I go through so much without really understanding? And I'm sure that those things were available. Like, people had probably tried to teach me, and my mind was just not there. I didn't really care. I was more into friends and things. So it wasn't like the teacher's fault necessarily. Partly it was mine for not caring. But I think part of it was a system that I was in. And I started thinking, well, what is a better way? How can I educate my daughter in a way that will help her have these thoughts and these understandings, because they would have helped me so much. Like, that's the other thing. If I had understood these things when I was in high school, I would have made much better decisions. I didn't see it this way. And so that's kind of what got me started into understanding what an education was. I started reading books about education and started just kind of trying to fill my mind with what it was that I was lacking. I wasn't sure what it was. And eventually that led me, and this is a totally different story I won't go into, but I started homeschooling because a friend was telling me about some books she was reading, and I thought I would try it. And I started running homeschool groups and really trying to delve deep into like, how do you educate a group? Like, and what's the best way to do that? And that led me to several other things, like humanitarian work and things that I thought, like, this is what it's for. Like, an education isn't just to take tests, get a job, pass, and get money someday. It's for understanding who we are and our unique work on this earth, like what we're here to do that will make this world better. We've all given unique gifts, unique interests, unique circumstances that can help us make this world a better place. And an education is to help us understand those and be motivated to gain those skills and those abilities, and then go out and do something about the problems that we see or that we feel personally called to do something about. And so this 5-day challenge is to get us thinking about those, how to educate ourselves in that way, and the principles that help us understand that and reach our personal goals in a way that is consistent and that is also present. So we're not constantly living in the future or beating ourselves up because we didn't do this or that, but we're joyful in the moment while taking the next little step towards what we want to do. And the way we do that, well, there's several ways. The first principle I want to talk about is that we want to establish systems. And so when I first created this program, I started to worry. I was just kind of beta testing it, and I started to notice that some people felt like it was giving them another thing to do, and everyone already felt so busy. And the last thing we need as busy moms or busy people is like another thing to add to our to-do list, right? And I started to think, if I teach principles, people will know how to apply them in their own way. But I'm teaching systems, and is that just going to make people feel like, oh, just got to add another thing to my plate? And so as I was considering this, I was fasting and praying about it one day because I really wanted to know, what direction do I need to go with this? And I noticed a book sitting on an armchair of one of our couches that I had been meaning to read for a while. It had been on our bookshelf that I had bought. It's called Atomic Habits. And I don't know who had picked it up and left it on the armchair, but I picked it up and I just opened up to a random page. And it happened to be about systems. And it said, goals are good, but if you're playing a game, like if you're watching a football game, you're not staring at the scoreboard. You're watching the game. Like, it would be lame to just stare at the scoreboard and wonder about the score. You've got to establish systems that get you to the score that you want. And that's what the game is. It's the systems that you're establishing to get you there. And he said, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And if you want to establish something long-term, then you got to establish a system to get there. Which was really cool because it was like a pretty direct answer to the prayer I was having that day, the thing I was fasting about, like how important these systems are and establishing them in order to reach the potential that we have within us. But part of that creating systems isn't just like, okay, well, from now on, I'm going to exercise every day for half an hour, and I'm going to do this and this and this, and this is going to be my system, and because again, like, when you start out that way, you often burn out. And then you feel guilty because you didn't do it, and then you kind of give up. But that's the second principle I want to talk about, is establishing a baseline for the habits that you want to develop. So systems are basically like little stacks of habits. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this after it. That's like a system is 2 habits stacked on each other. Or that's how I teach it anyway. And so you want to establish a baseline for the habit that you're trying to do. And so instead of saying, from now on, I'm going to exercise 30 minutes a day, you'll say, I'm going to exercise every day, but my baseline for that habit is going to be to do 1 sun salutation, or go on a walk for 2 minutes, or take some deep breaths, whatever it is, like a very basic thing that you can do if you're sick, if you're traveling, if you're like emotionally depleted, whatever it may be. You have a very small baseline. Because when you do this very small baseline every day, it starts to take root. It's like a seed of a habit. And as it starts to take root, it'll start to grow. And it'll start to eventually become what you want it to be eventually. But you have to put the seed in and establish it daily and consistently. So it can start very small. And that's what Brooke Snow in the Brooke Snow podcast in episode 61, she calls it a floor and a ceiling. Your ceiling is like your ideal goal where you want to eventually be. But your floor is what you're not going to allow yourself to go under. And of course, if you skip a day, then you just pick yourself back up and you do it the next day. But it's so small that it doesn't feel overwhelming. And so we're going to establish these next few days a little baseline habit that you want to start doing. And we're going to talk about a connection tool that you're going to start with, because the connection tools remind us of our why, so they motivate us to move forward. If we just are going through this with our own willpower and our grit, and I'm going to do this no matter what, it can be depleting. And we can often forget our reason, and then we just rebel. At least my personality, if I'm making myself do something that I don't really want to do that day, then I just rebel against it, and I don't want to do it anymore because I feel expected to do it. And so we have to understand our why each day and be reminded of it each day. And so we have like a little connection system that connects us to God or our higher power than our own, because like I said, our own can often be very weak. And so that's the third principle that I wanted to share, is to always start with your why and establish something that reminds you of your why. And we'll be talking about that the next couple of days, of a little connection system that you can set up. In the Find Your Path program, we set up a morning system the first month, and then an evening system the next month, and then an emotional connection system month 3, and then month 4 is your midday connection system. And each connection system starts with a little connection ritual that you're starting to habit stack on top. So in the morning you may have your connection, and then you can start, maybe you want to do like a personal devotional or family devotional, whatever you want to start habit stacking on there, but you just pick one, because you can cycle through the program again and pick another one that you're going to add to it. You don't have to feel like I'm going to start here and I'm going to have like the perfect day from now on, but you just add one little thing, and the next cycle through you add the next little thing. And so that's the other principle, is cycles. Life works in cycles, right? We have like spring, summer, fall, winter, a morning, day, evening. We have the seed, the sprout, the fruit, and the seed. Like, cycles are a very organic way to grow. And what we tend to do as humans is like, I'm going to do everything right now, instead of thinking like, I can grow a little at a time, and I'm just going to cycle through again and grow a little bit more. It's kind of this upward spiral, instead of this like, I'm here, I want to be here, and I'm here, and I'm going to just climb my way there, and then I'm going to keep falling because I'm not strong enough yet. So those are the 4 principles that I wanted to mention today as we're getting started on this challenge, and then, or this 5-day challenge, and then I'll give you your challenge in a minute. But again, to review, it's baseline habits, having a connective tool to get you started so that you remember your why, and establishing little systems, and then cycling through them again and again, right? And then this principle of active learning, we apply it to our lives. Because when we know something, it stays in our head, and it's only it can't fit anything else in. So when we act on it, it moves to our heart, it becomes part of who we are, and then we have more room in our head to learn more. It's kind of this process of becoming. But if we don't act on it, it just stays here, and then we don't have room for more knowledge, because we're stuck in this thing that we're not actually doing. And that's how you progress through life. I call it the SALT cycle, because we're seeking, and then S is for seeking, A is for acting on it, and then L is for living it, right? It becomes part of our lives, and then T is for teaching it to others. And so this cycle, this active learning cycle, is really how we learn. It's not by taking tests and hoping that we pass. It's what makes us become who we need to be. And that's what this whole program just kind of cycles through again and again, is this process of learning. So the challenge for today, I'm going to link the Brooke Snow podcast if you have a chance to listen to it, because it talks about floors and ceilings and that whole concept. And then to just be prayerfully thinking about, like, if I had to choose one thing that I wanted to add to my morning, a little morning habit, what would it be? And remember, choose the baseline. That's something very simple, and be pondering on that, because tomorrow we're going to be talking a little bit about the connection tool that we're going to use in the morning. We're going to start that process, and then we'll finish it on day 3. But we're going to add that little habit that you personally feel inspired to do, because that's going to keep you motivated. It's not me saying you need to do this. It's your own personal thing that you're wanting to do. So be pondering on that. And I have a reading that kind of explains all of these principles. I'll attach it below as well. It just kind of gonna say some of the things I already said, but if you want to look at it in paper and read through them, then you can do that. And each day, this 5-day challenge will have a little reading that you can do and a challenge that you can apply. And then if you have questions or if something doesn't make sense or you want to share your habit, I would actually really love it if you would share your habit. Just share it in the comments or on the Facebook group, and we can start like encouraging each other on our little habit. So I guess your challenge is to be prayerfully thinking about it, and if you find something, if you choose something, then go ahead and post it on the Facebook group and let me know what you think of the reading or the podcast or any of this. Go ahead and start the discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for listening. Hi, Michelle. Actually, Michelle's are watching, so hi, both of you. And then the rest of you, just go ahead and when you get a chance to watch this, go ahead and post your thoughts. And I will talk to you all soon.